morning. That was not good enough. Good morning. At least you had a breakfast that was as good as the one that we got, right? Let me first begin by extending my heartfelt gratitude to the Center for Legal Studies at CMI University and all of you here for your very kind hospitality and this invitation. I guess I'm the odd one out in the room here. The person who's neither a lawyer nor is aiming to become one. Let me put my timer on because I tend to speak a little bit more than what I'm supposed to, so it's good to have the timer on, right? Okay. So as I was saying, I'm neither a lawyer nor aspiring to be one, but I have had 3 moments in my life where law has really intersected with mine. I do teach an optional course in public policy and public pub to our LLM students at Jain University. I did a bit of refugee law, a lot of it in fact when I was doing my master's at Oxford. And I've had the privilege and the good fortune of working with the one and only Professor B.S. Chimney on refugee law course, Asia syllabus. It's an online reader which is available for you there, and I'm on the editorial board. So yes, law intersects and touches all our lives. And today we are talking about gender gap. We were talking over breakfast that the word gender today in the year 2022 is no longer the binary of just male and female, right? No longer when we talk about gender are we talking as bra-burning feminists talking of only women's rights. It's equally about sensitizing men. But I hope in the first minute of my speech I've said it, that it's also about the entire gamut of alternative sexualities, the LGBTQI today. But unfortunately, I think so other than Sana, most of us will end up not yet talking about it and wait and watch, okay? I will today speak to you about gender gap in the area that is my expertise, and that is in the realm of higher education. So bear with me. I would like to, I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. We don't have shorts news for you. Can we put our mind to just listening for a few minutes, right? So I'm going to read to you from a chapter that was published in a Sage volume written by myself and Roshni Sharma, who's my PhD student. And we spoke about addressing gender parity in higher education. Now the governments across the globe, we know that, right, have been working to balance out the gender parity index, especially in the field of higher education, in order to facilitate a more inclusive development. Now, though at a slow pace, there has been a humongous growth in the numbers of women enrolling in higher education and the global gender parity, which is at 68.6% to be precise. However, the status of the same in developing countries is a very different picture, as there is the gender parity in the field of education, yet which is as close to 20% of the gaps. Thus, the picture remains gloomy, despite the significant progress that has been made in the said field to promote equality and social justice. The marginalization of women is even further when it comes to access to higher decision-making levels in higher education. Working women, like all women, face what we call quote-unquote double jeopardy, the reality of confronting discrimination because not just of their gender, but also by the virtue of being a minority. I hope we all learn to stop calling our Honorable President the woman tribal president and just refer to her as the President of India. I hope you have not forgotten that when Esther Duflo and Abhijit Banerjee won the Nobel Prize, we all kept saying Esther Duflo, the wife of Abhijit Banerjee. Well, excuse me, she is Esther Duflo, she is a Nobel laureate on her own merit, right? So look at the casual conversations with which we also entrench this. Contextualizing the same in the Indian model, last 7 years have witnessed a minimal gender gap in higher education. The gross enrollment ratio suggests that there were 85 females as against 100 male enrollments in higher education in 2018 and 19, and this figure has of course gone up or changed. Despite these figures, studies still focus on the embedded inequalities with respect to women being underrepresented at the higher positions in higher education. In the Global Gender Gap Report, India ranked 87th position in terms of gender equality, and I believe the last one, it's gone further down. This has been a norm despite the national policy for empowerment of women in 2001, which was focusing on the vital need to condense the gender gap in higher education and the focus of the last 12-year plan, 2012 to 2017. Of course, we have the Niti Aayog then after that taking over. Now, alongside the voices from academia have repeatedly argued the significance of having diverse perspectives on board. But interestingly, this feature is not limited geographically. Rather, a similar kind of a situation exists in most of the countries in the world. For instance, nations like UK, USA, and Australia also have similar stories. So we need to today stand and interrogate the reasons behind the low representation of women as leaders, such as vice chancellors and administrators within higher education, despite studies showing a worldwide boom in the higher education of women, right? The question that needs to be asked is that why does this quote-unquote gap exist even after a rise in the enrollment of women in higher education? Despite improved access of women to higher education, there still remain many educational inequities and inequalities when it comes to women faculty, as most of them remain concentrated in the lower rungs of the academic ladder, and not many really reach the higher managerial levels. Now, there is ample evidence worldwide, if you look at theoretical literature, that demonstrates this glaring absence of gender in the analysis of higher education policy. While studies focus on female enrollment into courses, there isn't really much data available on the percentage of women as staff or as in higher positions in other domains of higher education. Now, existing studies show that some women are able to occupy the senior leadership positions, but their number still remains dismally low and very low. 2 decades ago, Engender and Conroy had highlighted that while women students were slowly becoming the majorities in college campuses, they lacked the rights they deserved as, and I quote, "The cultural tradition of male dominance still prevails in academic leadership, teaching, curricula, and standards of promotion and tenure." And this has been attributed to a variety of factors, which I'm sure many of my other colleagues will also talk about in society. I'm a PhD guide at my university, and my youngest student is 65-year-old Shukla Bose, who's the CEO of Parikrama Foundation, which runs schools for in urban slum children. And she talks to me about how she was the first woman in IIM Bangalore in her class at that time, right? So we may have come a lot from there, but we still have a longer way to go. Let's not be just happy with the sheer tokenism of 2 female presidents, right? There is a big gap there that tokenism does not cover. Now, while until the 1990s, women entered institutions of higher education in countries like India to mainly study arts subjects or general education, today they study both new and traditionally labeled what you call masculine disciplines like hard sciences and engineering. However, the percentage remains very significantly low. The Global Gender Gap Report of the World Economic Forum stated that in the STEM field, like science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, women are still underrepresented. Such an underrepresentation has also been the result of the stereotyping image of a scientist who's a man wearing a white coat, right, and works in a lab. This, in result, has only strengthened in associating the masculine traits with such disciplines. Well, I was talking about this casually. I hope, sir, next time we come here and we're being served breakfast, I see some boys serving the breakfast to us rather than just girls, right? Let's just start with that small little gender stereotype right there. Just like I tell my girl students that when you're going on a field trip, don't expect your boy classmates to pick up your heavy suitcases, right? You should be doing that. And similarly, the boys should also be cooking and cleaning and serving for you. Now, there has been research to study the gender impact of changes like these on social change and gender equity, and to interconnect the participation and the subject choice of women in India's system of higher education. Now, we have Chananda, who wrote an excellent piece into 2020 and has recently actually dismissed the argument of feminist scholars of the double burden being borne by women and the conflict between their professional and personal roles as being insufficient in explaining this exclusion of women from senior academic roles. Well, she points out that while attempts to address the gender inequality in the corporate world have been made by pumping up the figures of female employment in senior positions, the higher education institutions, like universities where you and I are speaking and talking and we are inhabiting, still have not been positively impacted by such a strategy. So the process, I say, of what we call othering the women as a group is not a new phenomenon. Women across the globe have witnessed tough times to make their voices heard in the decision-making process. Regardless of the space that they are in, they are being excluded, and therefore the position of women in leadership roles in higher education cannot be treated in isolation from the general status of women in society. Davis and McNaldo in 2015 have studied the implications of race and gender for African American women in academia. Fitzgerald has examined the contribution of women as senior leaders in universities across Australia and New Zealand to highlight the challenges and complexities they face. How in academia, they undertake a great deal of labor, emotional toil, and a lot of, despite decades of affirmative action strategies and equity legislation, they still struggle to claim their leadership space as their own. The field of higher education does not show any different picture thus. Though there has been improvement with more women taking part in university leadership roles than before, as I repeatedly hammer it down, let's not be happy that percentage still is very low compared to all over the world, right? The fact is that the gender gap unfortunately increases with seniority. You may have women, a lot of women, but at the lower levels, right? Mid-level it gets less, and it's really big, the gap at the higher levels. Just like you have 30% reservation for women where? Only at the local level, right? At the local panchayats. For 20 years, our national parliament, we failed to pass the women's reservation bill. We were not able to do that. So there is a lot more on this, and I'm running out of time. I'll just say that today the need is to make policies more inclusive and diverse with the approach of promoting gender diversity and being more sensitive in mainstreaming the role of women leadership within higher education. Like a strong stance could be taken in the aspect of developing ambition amongst the women in society. We are often told, politics aapke liye nahi hai, big jobs are not for you. You're supposed to be for the home. The private space is the women's, the public space is for the men. That's where the duality comes in. That's where you need to break those barriers. So you need to develop the ambition amongst the women in society so that they are in a better position to take up more challenging roles which otherwise get sidelined in prioritizing their family responsibility. Despite all advancements, studies still show that diverse contexts of gender considerations still influences the choices for women when it comes to choosing what they can study, that in the family the father still played a very prominent role in deciding the subject choice, and so gender is still mediated as an entire decision-making process. This surrender of agency goes right up to the top, and it impacts the entry of women in higher levels of decision-making in higher education. So when gender concerns deprive women of their agency of determining their subject choices, the process of deprivation only adds up to the top. It makes people, and particularly makes women, believe that they don't deserve it. From childhood, women are reared to believe that the major attributes found in most professional and occupational roles, such as persistence, drive, personal dedication, aggressiveness, and emotional detachment, are considered to be masculine traits, which they don't have. So when a woman exercises her agency and aims for positions at higher education levels, her choice involves her in conflicts and ambiguities, and given societal and biological demands on women, her choice may require her to adopt a complex lifestyle to accommodate both home and work responsibilities. What stood true and was discovered empirically 4 decades ago, unfortunately, my dear friends, stands true even today in 2022 as we speak, because we have only 14% women in our parliament. Whereas, take a guess, which is the country in the world which has the highest level of number of women in their parliament? A guess.
Iceland?
No. So you're not supposed to. Anyone else from there? Anyone from the boys and girls in front? Sorry? No, the Swedish model is good, is a very human rights sensitive. I give you one option there. UK, no. It's Rwanda and Bolivia. Now, hold it. If I had a gender class, I would have shown you the video. It's not because the men there are very empowered, it's because the men died in genocide, right? There are no men. That's why. So on that thought, thank you so much. Take care.
I have Advocate James Arun, and I thank Vidya Sarvamani ma'am, Tabassum ma'am, and Professor Dr. Subramania for inviting me here and for having me here. And thank you all for having me here. I appreciate it. I have been asked to talk about gender gap, a topic which we usually don't talk in the courts, right? By definition, all of you can Google gender gap in Google and find out everything that you need to know. So I won't go too deep into statistics. I will limit it to real life experiences. The gender gap is by definition, the disparity, or I say discrimination between people of different genders. It manifests itself across politics, business, employment, education, healthcare, etc. It's across sectors. The male, female, and third gender students may pay equal amount of tuition fees and other fees to get into a college of repute like CMR. But when they go out of college, into the real world to work, do they get equal pay, irrespective of their gender? That is something that you guys need to think about. Most of you are studying to become lawyers. I'm assuming that this is a lot of students here are law students? Yes. All of you, excellent. So most of you are studying to become lawyers. Some of you may choose to enter the field of litigation as a career, and some of you may want to work in non-litigation corporate law firms. Irrespective of what you decide, you will encounter pay disparity, respect disparity when you start practicing law. Some of you will get very good pay. Some of you may struggle. While competency, intelligence, communication skills, etc. play a definite part, your gender also may be an important factor. A beautiful lady or a handsome gentleman will be at a better position to bag a job than an ordinarily looking lady or a gentleman. Sounds harsh, but that's the truth. As a competent lawyer, your personality may matter to a certain extent. Maybe to an extent, even your gender also may matter. For example, a lady client may want to choose a lady lawyer because they feel more comfortable with a lady advocate. Vice versa may also be true. But what really matters are your skills, your talent, and most importantly, your ability to win cases. This will help you to get good clients. You will get respect outside and inside the courts. Judges will respect you, your colleagues will respect you, you will be sought after, and you will be prosperous. You will be happy. How many of you want to be rich? How many want you to be happy? How many of you want to be rich and happy? Right? So all this requires hard work and smart work and smart planning. It's very important. All you young people will fall in love, will want to get married, and will want to start a family. I see a lot of whispers. Guess what will happen? Irrespective of gender, you will start probably at the same pay, same level. However, as time goes by, priorities change. A smart, intelligent, competent lawyer who's a lady, who's probably sitting in this audience today, may have to take a break in her career for her pregnancy. For example, her husband, maybe another lawyer sitting in this audience, will now have to work double to make ends meet. Guess who will grow in their careers? Gender-specific biological capabilities are facts. There are things that only a woman can do. For example, only a woman can give birth, not men. A woman only can breastfeed, not a man. A woman only can produce breast milk, not a man. There are specific things that only a woman can do. But gender-specific issues exist in our society. A lady is usually objectified sexually. Okay, I'm not being gender neutral in discrimination. Even a guy is probably objectified. But a lady is usually targeted in sexual crimes, eve-teasing, sexual harassment, rape, murder. People with patriarchal mindsets usually will assign roles to women that patriarchy can deal with. Though women are more competent in some areas than men, patriarchy may define specific roles with an aim to protect the women, but in reality will propagate patriarchal mindsets. For example, a typical patriarchal mindset may think like this: if we need to work long hours, let us not hire women. Especially at nights, it will be a problem. This may cause a problem to the women. Let us hire more men. It doesn't matter if the men are asked to stay back for a few hours more. We can't have any potential harassment issues from women. Let's focus on hiring men only. This is the concept of patriarchal thinking. This type of attitude causes gender gaps. Some progressive companies, which are great places to work, may have great policies that bring out gender parity, which promote gender equality, but they are a minority. You are lucky if you are working in such companies. Many companies, especially the small and medium-sized companies, may not have robust HR policies that encourage gender parity. At the same time, there are some smaller companies, including law firms, who treat their employees like family, which means they'll make you work very hard and give you less pay. And encourage gender parity and gender equality. You should look for such firms. You will be rich and happy. All of you have studied our Constitution. Article 40, right to equality. Article 19G, right to practice any profession or carry on any occupation, trade or business. Article 21, right to life. Article 39A, the state shall in particular direct its policy towards securing that the citizens, men and women equally, have the right to adequate means of livelihood. Article 39D, that there is equal pay for equal work for both men and women. So on and so forth. All beautiful words written. Are they implemented? That's a different story. While the Constitution mandates such equality, the ground reality, however, is different. There is open discrimination in payment of wages to men and women. Equal pay for equal work is often left at the discretion of legalities and technicalities of what constitutes equal work. Male and female teachers, for example, teach the same students in the same classroom but may not get remunerated the same. Establishments that pay equally for equal work to both male, female employees deserve praise and respect. There is a gender pay gap in even established companies, mainly due to the fact that the persons who decide pay structures and who apply such pay structures to people have the discretion to do so, and such discretion leads to intentional or unintentional gender disparity and discrimination. This is more often a result of patriarchal and societal mindsets rather than the law. Often we notice that confidentiality surrounding salaries of people. Many employees usually do not talk about their salaries with other co-workers. A change of mindset is needed. If such salaries are openly published among employees, then that transparency alone could engender gender parity and gender equality. However, many people still believe that salary transparency endangers loyalty and promotes attrition rather than engendering loyalty and long-term commitment. The difference is the endanger and engender. The huge responsibility of bridging the gender gap and promoting gender parity and gender equality falls on all of us as a collective responsibility. The government does make laws that promote gender parity. Whenever infractions happen by the state or otherwise, the judiciary intervenes and enforces the law. But more often than not, there are so many loopholes already existing or which get created which continue to promote gender gap. Until and unless all of us as responsible members of the society accept the thought that everyone deserves equal opportunity and equal pay for equal work, this gender gap will continue. The biggest stakeholder in creating gender equality is not the government and definitely not the judiciary. The biggest stakeholder is us, we, the people. When we decide that gender gap must stop, it will stop. It doesn't matter if we are the employer or the employee. Before asking for equal pay from our employers, are we willing to pay equally to our maids, our drivers, our housekeeping staff, our own employees, irrespective of their gender? Are we willing to do unto others what we want others to do unto us? In today's fast-changing world, personally, I see a lot of progress. I see women leading men. I see women in very senior positions. I see women earning salaries in lakhs and crores. Yes, crores. I see successful women managing to have a decent work-life balance, managing family and career with grace and gumption. I see men acknowledge the intellectual superiority, greater work commitment, and ethics of women executives. I see positive change. I see hope. There is still a lot to be done. Change is the only constant, but we are definitely better today than we were yesterday. And I hope strongly that we will be better tomorrow than what we are today. Everything is not hunky-dory, but it is not a situation of great despair either. There is change, there is hope. I see many people and organizations, both liberal and conservative, come out in support of the marginalized third gender. There is more acceptance today of people who belong to the third gender as employees in organizations. I have personally seen a company which interviewed one trans person accidentally, and finding that the person was well qualified with a PhD, immediately extended an offer. Finding an untapped but qualified workforce, a special drive was conducted, and out of 300 trans persons that had applied, 100 trans persons were given job offers. The first request from the newly hired trans persons was for a separate bathroom. Though most of the existing employees were tolerant and accepted their new colleagues in the workforce, some were not happy and created issues. It took a great amount of policy making, change in attitudes of management and fellow employees to make the trans person workforce feel accepted within the organization. There was joy, there was pride, and the trans person slowly put their guard down because of the niceness of the people around in the building. Unfortunately, when they came out of the office building into the streets, the real world started behaving with them in the manner they were used to, insulting them, name calling them, taunting them, treating them like beggars, and untouchables, stripping them of the dignity and respect that this organization so painstakingly cultivated within its premises. Sadly, many trans persons had to quit this organization, not because they could not handle the niceness inside, but the cruelty outside the premises. They left because they knew how to handle the constant indignities outside. They did not know how to handle the pendulum of feelings of niceness and cruelty on a day-to-day basis. The organization realized that the society, as a major stakeholder, has a greater role to play than anyone else. All these trans persons needed was acceptance. To my young friends, if you can take away anything from today's panel discussion here, take away one word, and only one word: acceptance. Develop an attitude of acceptance, an acceptance of the identity of who these trans persons are, an acceptance of whatever they want to call themselves, an acceptance of just allowing them to be who they are or who they want to be, an acceptance that men, women, or trans persons are all human and are all entitled to rights as per the Constitution and entitled to dignity from our collective conscience as a society. Sarve Jana Sukhino Bhavantu.
Thank you so much, sir.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am, for giving me this opportunity to be a member of a panel consisting of such distinguished persons, and also for giving me this opportunity to address such young minds, young and impressionable minds. So, let me start off by saying that as a chartered accountant or lawyer, I have seen these gender issues crop up pretty much at every form of, in every corporate sector, whether be it small, medium, or even large-sized businesses. So at the forefront, I would like to state that as a father of two young daughters, I derive extreme pride and inspiration whenever I witness any woman excelling in her profession. Not only does this mean that my daughters have a brighter and a better future, but it also implies that as a society, we are indeed successfully striving towards bridging this gender gap. However, from a practical perspective, there are quite a few challenges to surmount before we can successfully bridge this gender inequality gap at the workplace. Let me highlight a few of them. Before that, let me give you a few statistics to highlight the gravity of this problem. According to the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Report 2021, the COVID-related disruptions increase the time it will take to close this gender gap by a whopping 36 years in just 12 months. This means that it will now take an estimated 136 years for men and women to reach parity, according to this report, which assesses areas including economic participation, opportunity, educational attainment, health, and political empowerment. South Asia has one of the lowest percentages of gender equality at 62.3% compared to Western Europe at about 78%. Secondly, when it comes to political leadership, I think ma'am had addressed this issue. It is pertinent to highlight the fact that in Indian Lok Sabha, only 14% members are women. Whereas in the Rajya Sabha, which consists of nominated members, it has only 10% women. This goes to show that even our political leaders are insensitive about this issue. They don't even care to nominate women into a body which comprises basically of nominated members. The global average in this regard is about 25%. Obviously, more women leaders elected by the people reflects a society's acceptance of women as being equal to men. It is also important here to highlight or perhaps discuss the efficacy of mandatory reservation for women in the parliament. Whether this would help in bridging the gap or not would be better addressed by the panel members. However, I would like to highlight the fact that Rwanda and Bolivia, which ma'am had highlighted, has the highest share of women in the parliament according to the statistics from the Inter-Parliamentary Union. Quotas have been key to this and used in many electoral systems that have more women as legislators and MPs. It is a well-established fact that women leaders would make most organizations free from prejudices against other women. Thirdly, another oft-stated reasons for the existence of this gender gap is that apparently women tend to be less competitive than men in workplace settings. However, new research published on November 1st, 2021 in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences suggests that women are likely to be more competitive than men if they can share their winnings, as they are often team players. This may mean that women may make better team leaders as they tend to thrive in a collaborative approach. And fourthly, more important, is that with the advent of artificial intelligence penetrating all areas of our market and society, efforts need to be made at government, academic and corporate levels to ensure that AI systems are not biased against women candidates. Some technology companies such as Google are already taking a lead in this particular area. However, coming to the elephant in the room, an issue which I believe has always been a deal breaker for every woman in the workplace would be sexual harassment of women at workplace. As a practicing lawyer, I have had first-hand experience while dealing with cases involving workplace sexual harassment, and that it invariably leads to an exodus of female employees in the event of even a single event of such harassment. Post-independence, the Indian Penal Code 1860 was perhaps the only refuge that women had in the event of any harassment faced by her at workplace. She could either lodge a complaint under section 354 of the IPC, which basically deals with outraging the modesty of a woman, or under section 509 of the IPC, which punishes the individual for using a word or gesture to insult the modesty of a woman. Though both these offences are cognizable and enable the police to act swiftly and promptly against the perpetrators, most women choose to suffer silently as the police have little or no training to handle these issues sensitively. Perhaps a landmark case in this regard would be Rupan Diol Bajaj versus KPS Gill in 1995, wherein a celebrity police officer in Punjab, that is KPS Gill, who was single-handedly the mastermind for bringing peace in the Punjab area, was convicted of outraging the modesty of a female IAS officer in the public. This case sent a strong message that even the high and mighty could be brought to his knees in the event of any harassment meted out to a female colleague. However, what became a significant milestone which was achieved after a revolution of sorts in the struggle for a safe workplace environment was the 1997 Apex Court's Vishaka Guidelines, which I'm sure most of you would be aware of it, which makes it mandatory for organizations, whether in private or public sector, to establish a mechanism for the redressal of sexual harassment complaints. These guidelines were issued after a hue and cry was raised after the Rajasthan High Court's acquittal of the rape accused in the Banwari Devi case. The agitations regarding the treatment of women by the Rajasthani criminal justice system, including the insensitivity and recalcitrant attitude shown by the police, led a group of NGOs to approach the Supreme Court in Vishaka and others versus the state of Rajasthan. In this case, a 3-judge bench held that the fundamental rights provided under Articles 14, 15, 19(1)G and Article 21 of the Constitution of India are violated by acts of sexual harassment in the workplace. The court declared that the Vishaka guidelines are meant for the protection of women at their workplace and providing a safer environment to the women. The Vishaka guidelines are merely procedural in nature and state the methods to be adopted in the event of any forms of sexual harassment complaints which crops up quite frequently. So in the year 2013, after a whopping 16 years after the Vishaka guidelines were issued, the Indian Parliament decided to enact a law to protect women at workplace. The Sexual Harassment of Women at the Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013 was passed by the Parliament with an objective of providing a special enactment to safeguard and protect women at the workplace. The new act passed in 2013, purportedly broadens the definition of aggrieved woman to involve any woman of all ages in order to suit the modern day conditions. Further, it also broadens the scope of the term workplace, which was earlier limited only to the traditional office setup. Now, in my practice, I have often noticed that several lacunae in the above enactment. For instance, the 4th chapter of the said enactment, which deals with complaints of sexual harassment, restricts the persons who can inform or complain regarding acts of harassment. For instance, Section 9 very clearly states that only an aggrieved woman may make the complaint. In reality, most aggrieved women are not in a position to make a complaint, or rather too intimidated by the establishment from picking a confrontation. Any victim of sexual harassment has a propensity to withdraw from the scene and avoid further confrontation rather than fighting the injustice meted out to her. Instead of permitting only aggrieved women to lodge complaints, it would be better if any person who has witnessed or even has knowledge of the offense having been committed is allowed to lodge a complaint. In one case that I dealt with, a group of female doctors were subjected to sexual harassment by the male nurses and ward boys in a hospital. Obviously, the said hospital had no internal committee, and moreover, the employer was tacitly involved in perpetrating the offense. Only one female doctor was willing to fight it out. However, she was actively discouraged by the other victims and her colleagues, who were in turn discouraged by the respective family members. Moreover, even if she had to lodge a complaint, she could not have complained on behalf of the other victims, as the same is barred by the restrictive definition of Section 9. All the female doctors who were victims of these heinous crimes decided to quit their jobs and moved on with their lives, thus becoming the silent majority of the workplace sexual harassment victims. Further, the following Section 10 of the Sexual Harassment Act 2013 provides for a conciliation and settlement rather than any form of counseling. Moreover, the same provision prohibits any form of monetary settlement. There seems to be no well-founded reason to prohibit monetary settlements, as the sexual harassment laws in many developed countries do provide for such settlements. Further, monetary settlements go a long way in deterring deviant behavior at the workplace by the male members. Moreover, when the enactment envisages a possible settlement, it has an effect of blunting the perception of the gravity of the offences involved. Coming to the next aspect of the said enactment, an inquiry conducted by the internal committee shall, as per Section 11, may result in the committee forwarding the complaint to the police under Section 509 of the IPC, which all of us may know is once again a bailable offence. This implies that the entire enactment is toothless and is more a facade. Moreover, these types of provisions may lead to the police refusing to register any FIRs or complaints by the aggrieved victims. The police generally, they have a propensity to direct victims to approach other recourses if any such recourses are permissible in the law. And hence, in most of these cases, whenever an aggrieved victim were to approach the police directly and asks for the lodging of a complaint, whether under Section 354 or 354A or under 509, the police will obviously redirect them to either the internal committee, or in the absence of the same, they will redirect them to the local committee, which is again a bureaucratic government agency. So coming to the lacunae which I have highlighted above, these are purely illustrative of the lip services being paid by our lawmakers. Once again, I reiterate that one of the single biggest dampeners which most women will face in their workplace would be sexual harassment, because even a single such incident will always invariably lead to an exodus of all female workers, because no woman would want to work in an environment where any such woman, even a single woman, has been shunted out due to acts of sexual violence or sexual harassment. So, I would like to state that when it comes to gender equality at the workplace, sexual harassment is a very, very important concept, and perhaps is the elephant in the room which needs to be addressed very effectively. It always always leads to an exodus of not just the victims but also every other woman employee. Therefore, I conclude by stating that it is very pertinent that this issue is addressed on a war footing, as in my humble opinion, workplace sexual harassment alone is a major cause for women not participating in the workforce, thus leading to this particular gender gap in India. With this, I would like to conclude my discussion. Thank you so much.
Hi all. How many people know to clap? Shout. To shout? To laugh? To cry? Why you don't know to cry? You don't know to laugh? Okay, together. Please laugh. Clap. Okay, thank you. This is nothing but just to energize me as well as for you also. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I would start with a salutation like dear lesbian, bisexual, gay, transgender, Marladis, Jogappa, Jopti, sex workers, and ladies and gentlemen. Wait, you should clap many claps. Okay, so I would discuss and I would want to share my experience on gender gap based on my experience of ground levels, and which I have been experienced and I have been worked with the communities. Okay, so I will be also focusing towards the transgender communities rights base, and also how do we connect with the larger society, like with the different groups of the society. And have you see any gender gaps anyway? Obviously we see everywhere there is a gender gaps. So I would also say that there is a gap in judiciary as well, where who's the first gender, who's the second gender, and why we are the third gender. Why can't a woman can be a first gender? Why can't a transgenders can be a first gender? So it starts from your constitution, judiciary into your house of kitchen. Don't you think so? Yes, there is a gender gaps which travels every way. So I would also say that even from the gender gaps, even there is a Nirbhaya case where there was a discussion happened in Delhi, and we were invited for the discussions to just form a policy on women's rights, and we also been invited for the discussion, and most of women's rights activists say that we don't accept you people as we accept you 99% of percentage that you are a woman, but 1% we will not accept you as a woman. Why? Within the women rights group. So that means what I mean to say is, we are a competitor not only with the society, we also compete within the women rights group as well. We have a challenges there also. They don't accept 1% of you are not a woman, because they say that you don't undergo the cycle of periods, you don't procreate a child, you don't give a birth to a child. That is the reason, because you people don't have a uterus. That is the reason we don't accept you 1% that you are not a woman. You look like a woman, you walk like a woman, you talk like a woman, but we don't accept it. Don't you think there is a gender gap in this? So how do we combat this? How do you challenge within your own competitors? when we fight with the larger society, we fight along with these groups. And when you fight with along this group, how do you challenge within your groups and within your communities? So everywhere for us, being a transgender people, gender is becoming a big topic for us. Wherever you go, you present yourself. I always say, please call me she. Please call me Sana. Why? Because there is a gender gap when it comes to a pronoun, when it comes to your identity. Sorry. See, gender gap. Sorry. So, when it comes to your own identity, to prove yourself your identity, everywhere you should tell, I am a woman, I am a trans woman, my pronoun is she. So how do people know about me? A lack of awareness in the society. So how do we get those lack of awareness? How do we fill that? So everywhere there is a challenge in your employment opportunity also. I think from your CMR Cal campus, from your only I'm getting a call. See, some just attend this, no? From your college only I'm getting it. Okay, so that is the kind of a struggle that we face when it goes to employment. Employment is also not an easy access for us. It is a kind of a challenge over there, whether you should be qualified into proper educations. You should be everywhere. The government will say that please start your self-employment, do candles, do agarbatis. Why we need to do all this? Like sir said, like we can also be a collector, we can be a doctor, we can be an engineer. Why every time we are being dedicated to that professionals? So there is a gender gap. There is a gap between women saying that women are so physically not fit. They should be working very kind of a less professional works and they should get less wage. Under that, we also been undermined within the women groups. So you should, people everywhere, they will say as you work as an, start your self-employment by starting the agarbatis, by making a candles, start your tailoring schools. But where is the opportunity for us? In this society, no, everything is a problem. Even if you are tall, there is a problem. Even you are a short, that is also a problem. Even you are a dark, that is also a problem. You are a fair, that is also a problem. Then how to be in this society? Is there any standard figure? 26, boys will know how is 26, 36, what is that figure? Huh? See, if I am a tall, they say, oh, you are so tall, like Amitabh Bachchan. If you're short, oh, you are so short, where will you find your husband? If you're dark, oh, you please apply creams, please put double makeup coats. So why is this kind of discriminations? So if in this problem society, if we been following behind the norms of this society, we are not going to achieve anything. We should break the stereotype. We should come out. That is where we have been coming out. Everywhere they will mock at your attire, they will mock at your voice. They'll say, oh, you have so masculine voice, you are so tall, you look so scary, like this, blah, blah, blah. But how do you challenge? How do you break these gaps? When I don't come out, when I don't speak about my issues, when I don't challenge the issues in society, then how we will challenge the concerns in the societies? So that is where, everywhere, we have been presenting ourselves and sharing our own issues, sharing our own challenges. We also have been started lot of advocacy works, but earlier we used to do lot of protest rallies, that Pride March, all those stuffs we used to be doing. But later point, we know that how to challenge the society, how to challenge the law. With the law, you need to challenge within the root of law itself. So that is where I filed a petition in Supreme Court for the IPC section amendment of 377. So that was my first petition I challenged. Followed with that petition, we also received a kind of judgment in 2015, that is a third gender judgment. We have still a kind of a challenging with that judgment, because again, who's first, second and third? Why this kind of hierarchy? So again, you can see who is the judges? All men, so-called the upper class, the privileged, elite people. How much ever we have policies, you know, there are so many policies. Who created all those policies? You have any idea? There's lawyers, and they were most of our speakers have expressed, shared lot of developments, policies, laws, everything. Who generated these laws and policies? Who generated? Huh? Hey, tell ya. Who generated? I generated. No, who generated? The government. Who are the governments? Who go in AC car? Who go in private flights? Who stay in double 7-star, 10-star hotels? How they know the challenges of the marginalized communities issue. When it comes to transgender bill, when it comes to transgender protection rights bill, it is completely in the notion of these people, policymakers. It's not being consulted by the community. So what I want, that I will speak for myself and I will speak for my community. Why they are speaking on behalf of us? They are saying, in this law, they are saying, you want to prove yourself as a transgender, you have to go in front of magistrate, doctor, psychiatric, remove your clothes. Physically, they will check, you have vagina, you have breast, you have what all you have. Then they will certify you as a transgender. How many people have got that you people are women as a certified from doctors? Ma'am, you have any certification? So you have? No, then why we? When the law is talking about your self-identification, when it is talking about self-identification, and why again this kind of process that we need to go through? You have to remove your clothes and you have to examine physical and you have to prove yourself that you are a transgender. We know who we are. Accept us how we are and accept us what we are. Don't judge on us. Don't judge on color. Don't judge on height. Don't judge on hairstyle. Don't judge on dress. It's all about that we are a human being. First human being, then the next everything. So how much time I have? 5 more minutes. Okay. Because I have lot to talk, I will be talking like this only. Okay. Okay. So also I would really want to bring, like when it comes to this policy making and other development, people say we have brought so many developments, all this, we have a policy, we have a bill, all this stuff. They claim, they say, because they want to claim themselves. Because it's all about politics playing, no? Politics game. So when it comes to education, Bangalore University, wow, the Bangalore University got 1% reservation for transgender people. Applause? They don't applause, yeah. They got 1% reservation for the post-graduation students. How they bought the 1% reservation for the post-graduation? We didn't complete SLC only. Huh? Please bring the reservation for 1% or 2% reservation in the higher school itself. What kind of policy makings? This don't you think there's so much of gaps here? Huh? Literally they want, because they want to claims, they want to do, because next election is coming. You have to hurry, do all schemes, bring. Abhagya, E-bhagya, Dhanabhagya, Uta bhagya. You rush it up. You mess it up. What you have done? We did all this bhagyas. So actually, there is no proper policies, there is no proper law, there is no any kind of reservations. Why this? Still, we have a transgender policy in Karnataka 2017. I was one of the drafting member for that policy. Still, it's been kept on a table. Rightly, sir said. It's all nicely written and kept and warming in the Vidhan Saudas and departments. Where is the implementation? Where is the execution of those policies? Because the policies and this laws which has not been in favor of the community, how you will implement it? How you will execute those policies? So from where we should do all this? Like rightly, ma'am, she said she sent one invitation where Malala has given a note. Your voice should be towards some success, some achievements. And half of your voice is left behind, and where your voice has been heard. So I would request all of you to raise voice against all this kind of gaps, the policies, the discriminations, the harassments, and come. Every time, don't keep your books and read, mug up yourself. Experience yourself. Come to the field. Touch, feel, sense it. People will feel hesitant, ma'am. Can I touch you, ma'am? What? I am what? Superpower, huh? See, that kind of mind setup is there. You should not hesitate, because we look like a human being. Do I look like a alien? Huh? No, I am a human being. Accept as me as a human being only. Don't feel hesitations. You should start accepting as how we are. Don't judge on our attire, on our whatever our identity. Identity, it's a community politics, ma. Within ourselves, we have a lot of politics also. That is another session we'll talk. I think we should also talk the external issues first. So that is how we need to challenge. We have to raise our voices. It's not so easy that we have achieved today. Today I am sharing this panel, this stage is because of you people accepted us. You people, there are, like, I would also endorse that there is certain levels of acceptance and there is a certain level changes is happening. This is the evidence that we can do whatever we can. So this is the hope. Today I am speaking as one of a resource person. That is the changes that you can see. So why can't I be tomorrow a chief minister or prime minister? We can do a lot of changes. which is possible. So I think it's all about it's in our hand. Like you people are law study students, please think about it. Don't put your perspectives, don't articulate your thoughts, don't do any mistakes such. Consult communities' voices, have their consultations and take that policies, and that is the policies that we really needed. Not the so-called who's in AC chairs, they will write everything, whatever they want, they will write it and they will give. But actually, what you want is from the ground level, work in the ground level, observe it, experience it, and you all go ahead. So thank you so much.